Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Fresno Chinatown Urban Greening Project Community Update meeting. We'll be getting started in just a couple of minutes while we allow more people to join the Zoom call. So feel free to sit tight. There'll be a little bit of silence for another couple of minutes. We will get started in just about 1 or 2 more minutes, just allowing people to get off from work, get out of traffic, and join the meeting. Just give us 1 or 2 more minutes while we allow more people to join in the call. I'm going to give us just about 30 more seconds. We are at about half of the participant list that had signed up. I recognize, though, that some people are in the same room. So just give us about another 30 seconds before we get started. Well, good evening to all of you that have joined. We really appreciate you attending. If you came tonight for the City of Fresno's Chinatown Urban Greening Project Community Update meeting, you're at the right place. Thank you very much for joining us, and we're very excited to share with you the updates on the status of the project right now, as well as to continue to get your feedback. For those of you who would like to listen to this presentation in a language other than English, we are very grateful today to have two different interpreters with us. We have Rosa Ramirez, who speaks Spanish, and Laura Young Roby, who speaks Hmong. Both of them are available for any translation services over the course of today's meeting. All you need to do is on the bottom of your screen, if you're on a computer, you should see a globe symbol, or it might be under More, under the three dots that say More toward the right, and click on Interpretation. Under Interpretation, you can select English if you would like to listen to this presentation in English, select Spanish if you like to listen to it in Spanish, and select Hmong if you prefer to listen to it in Hmong. I'm going to pause right now and allow our interpreters to give those instructions in Spanish and Hmong. Why don't we start with Rosa? Thank you very much. And Laura? I think Laura might still be on the Hmong station actually right now. If Laura, if you can switch back over to English. Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you very much, Rosa. And in addition to our Hmong Spanish and English services tonight, we also have closed captioning available. So at the bottom of your screen, you can select to have a live transcription of today's meeting. In addition, since we are hosting this virtually, of course, as you all know, we are recording this meeting as well too, which means that the entire presentation, along with transcripts, will be available for you on the Transform Fresno website. That also, though, means that your participation in this meeting is considered to be consent to be recorded. That includes all of your comments during the questions and answers, anything that you might say in the chat, as well as your video if you're sharing video right now. We will have a question and answer session at the end of this meeting, and we encourage you and are delighted to get your feedback and questions. So please just make sure that you raise your hand or press *9 if you happen to be on a cell phone right now, and that will allow us to call upon you when we get to the Q&A part in about 30 minutes. All right, so just to go over the agenda for what we're going to go over this evening. First off, I'm going to introduce the talented team that we have here from the City of Fresno and their consultants. In addition, I'm going to go over the project. Most of you are probably already familiar with the project area. We just want to recap that as well. Then we're going to talk about the actual updates to the design status and what's coming up next for the project. And then we'll break for questions and answers to get your feedback. So first off, introductions. I'm delighted tonight to be with our project manager from the city of Fresno, that's Green Kandoyan, who is leading this project, the Chinatown Urban Greening Project. She's also here with other members of the engineering department from the city of Fresno, including Jesus Avitia and Cassie Schultz. And of course, we also have Courtney Espinosa, who is the manager for the Transform Fresno initiative. Along with us tonight, we also have representatives from DeWalt, which is our engineering consultant, Todd Wood, our principal engineer, along with Brandon Smith, and Nico Garza are joining us to answer any questions that you may have, as well as provide us with design updates. And finally, my name is Erica Waddell, and I am here with Overland Pacific and Cutler to provide and facilitate our community outreach. All right, community, of course, is a central tenet of everything that is happening as part of Transform Fresno and all of the projects underneath that portfolio. And this project, the Chinatown Urban Greening Project, is of course no different. What we're trying to do as a result of all of these projects in the portfolio is to create a more resilient, safer, and more sustainable Fresno for all. As part of this particular project, what we are focusing on is creating safe and sustainable infrastructure, such as street lighting, making sure that we have more green spaces and more community spaces as well too, as well as improving accessibility for pedestrians, for those in wheelchairs, for those who are traveling through and to Chinatown, Fresno as well too. Now, just to recap what the project area is, for those of you who are might not be familiar, the Chinatown Urban Greening Project actually represents two separate projects as part of the Transform Fresno portfolio, project number 1 and project number 6. All of these projects sit within Chinatown Fresno toward the west of where the high-speed rail station is going to be built. So you can see that in the blue over toward the right a little bit, but the project areas and the streets that will be affected are here in these lines. So we have along F Street, as well as China Alley predominantly, as well as Mariposa and Kern. We're going to go into more detail on each of these projects though right now. So this is, of course, the area at Ventura Street, as well at the corner of Ventura Street and F Street, very close to, of course, where Full Circle Brewery is. So the project will start here, essentially going along all of F Street toward Fresno Street. And this part of the project will be focused on street lighting and then and improved street lighting along all of F Street. There will also be some improvements along the China Alley between Kern Street and Inyo at this point as well too, to improve, to green up the area as well as improve safety and street lighting. Then the project will move forward into the Mariposa, corner of Mariposa and F Street, where we'll be installing a parklet. And followed by that, we'll be providing additional tree planting on that final block of F Street toward Fresno Street between Mariposa and Fresno Street. All right, and then the Project 6 area goes along all of China Alley that wasn't already part of Project 1, and will provide greening improvements along here as well too. And then there will be additional planting and streetlight improvements and sidewalk improvements along F Street, onto Kern Street, as well as onto Mariposa. Now, to go into more details about where the status of the design is right now, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Wood at DeWalt. Todd?
Thank you, Erica. So currently, what we'd like to share with the community is that in the previous, or the last public meeting we had a China Alley concept for the Green Alley that included multiple features such as the Green Alley, which is the permeable pavements to accommodate local drainage. We also had a significant amount of landscape improvements that you can see kind of shaded. The concept was these landscape areas, kind of a rectangular shaded area within the alleyway. There was a lot of feedback that we received at the last meeting that the business owners do a lot of loading and deliveries and so on in the alleyway. And so there were concerns about their delivery vehicles being able to drive safely through the alleyway. There was truck clearance issues. There was issues associated with lighting as well, that the neighborhood there made some concerns that while they welcomed lighting, they didn't want to attract a lot of pedestrian or people that are going to loiter in the alleyway. So safety was a big concern. So Erica, if you could go to the next slide. This may be a little bit hard to, kind of interpret exactly what's happening here. But what we've done is we've removed the landscape areas from the alleyway. So the Green Alley concept is now going to primarily focus on retaining the drainage and improving the alleyway itself, with the Green Alley concept, but none of the landscaping is included in the alleyway. So this will help, preserve the existing access for the business owners and allow them to continue to utilize the alley for their deliveries and loading and unloading of their product to get to their customers. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So, and this slide shows you kind of the concept lighting that we will be doing within the alley. And what it's going to be, you can see the symbols there that Erica's cursor is pointing to. Those are proposed additional lighting. That's city standard lighting. It's what they call a Cobra head style light that'll provide plenty of access for vehicles to be able to travel safely through the alley without conflicting with the lights. It's consistent with the city standards, and it's going to provide ample light for safety. You can go to the next slide, please. So this slide is kind of a nicer representation of, a sample section of the alleyway. And you can see, we've got the Cobra head style lights, the proposed lighting. You can see there in that picture to the bottom right of the corner in C. So that's going to be typical of what you would find within the alley. We also have the permeable pavers, which will be, the entire length of the alley will be repaved with the pavers. And then there's no tree wells within the alley, but you can see the trees on the side streets with the existing trees, which are predominantly the magnolias. Next slide, please. So for the street improvements, this is kind of a schematic of what we're going to be doing on F Street, Mariposa, and Kern. So the majority of the improvements that you'll see on F Street and at the intersections are going to be where we're going to be planting a lot more trees along F Street and the two Mariposa and Kern streets. So we'll be expanding the tree wells that are existing at certain locations, creating new tree wells where they need to be created. And you can see kind of some examples of what that would look like. in this block. Now, at the intersections, if you go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So here's the electrical and lighting concept. Again, you can see the existing lights that are the larger kind of gray centered lights. We are proposing some more pedestrian friendly and landscape aesthetic, nice lights. And you'll see those, and you can see the symbols are kind of a darker black symbol for the new stuff. So we're going to be adding a significant amount of lights and upgrading. And here, this slide really does do a good illustration of how we're going to treat the corners. So this speaks to the ADA improvements that we will be installing along F Street. So we'll have the corners, which are called a bulb out style corner with ADA ramps. We've got some crosswalk treatments. So this will really improve safety and walkability along the corridor. And you can also see where the landscape starts to blend into the concept too, where we have the tree wells at the corners. And we'll talk more about, the trees along F Kern and Mariposa. Next slide, please. And I'll let Brandon take over. He can speak to the design of the parklet that'll be at the corner there on F Street.
So the parklet design that was called out in the grant was designated for phase 1, and the location that was preliminarily chosen is located at the northwest corner of F at Mariposa, directly across next to the Fresno Housing Authority multifamily project that's currently under construction. The parklet, as it's proposed, is roughly, it's 20 foot by 8 foot wide. That's the exterior dimensions. The interior dimensions are 19 foot 8 inches by 7 feet 6 inches, and it gives a nice extra little space for the community to either gather as they congregate down the roads, or as they're potentially visiting some of the tenants of the building, of the community, or the potential restaurant or business owners that are also located in the Housing Authority project. The concept design is essentially a steel frame minimalistic design that is composed of steel tubing, powder coated steel tubing with stainless steel railing cables. The design attempts to detract from vandalism. The powder coating would be easily washable. It's not something that graffiti, for instance, would be easily permanently adhered to. The decking is proposed composite wood or Trex. It's again very easily cleaned with chemicals, as well as provides a nice wood-like tactile feature. So it creates a little bit of warmth in the urban area. The unit itself, or the structure itself, can be forklifted away within 30 minutes to an hour and relocated at another storage facility or a designated area should the city or the community decide. There's a ramp feature that allows pedestrians as well as any ADA allowable access, ease of use. And again, it's designed to fit in one parking stall. So we hope that it's a nice addition to the community. There will be 4 additional slides for the proposed color scheme. This current color is a general black, and then there are 3 additional. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Erica. The next slide is a gray silver. We don't have the final colors for the multi-housing project adjacent to it. However, the colors that were currently on the building, these all complement somewhat to. This is a jade color, option C. And then the final slide, the final option D is a red. So the community, you guys are welcome to go to the poll and cast your vote on which color, if any, that you guys particularly care for. And then I'm sure we'll have future feedback after that's wrapped up.
Thank you, Brandon. Yes, I've just launched a very unscientific poll to get your initial feedback and impressions on the 4 designs that we just presented. We can go back to these as well too if you guys have additional questions during the Q&A. In addition, of course, we want to give you more than just a few seconds to look at each of these design features. Instead, we have also already put on the Transform Fresno website a survey that will ask for your feedback on these 4 color options as well. So we want to get your initial impressions just since we're all here today, but you can go to the transformfresno.com website and lodge your opinion there on which of these 4 color schemes you like the best. Not only in terms of the colors of the parklets, but just in general, it's very important to us as the mission of this project to make sure that the community is happy with the final result. That's why my firm is engaged, and that's why we're having a meeting like this to make sure that we're able to get the community's feedback because it is very important to us. So again, we encourage you to go to Transform Fresno after this meeting or right now if you'd like to as well too. But we'll of course be soliciting your feedback on this and other design features at the end of this meeting. As a part of that feedback, we are so grateful in this community to have the participation and commitment of a group like Chinatown Fresno Foundation that has always been a champion and spearheading this project as a whole. So we're very thankful to Jan and the rest of the CFF team for putting out the survey that many of you may have already participated in that closed just this past week to get feedback on tree selection and street lighting. As Todd and Brandon have been talking about, a big part of this project will be street lighting improvements as well as planting. So this is the result over on the left of the survey that Jan had run through CFF that just closed. The city is taking this feedback very seriously, and Gareen and her team in the engineering is currently working with the planning department to find out which of these trees will actually work. One of the things that we need to look at as well too is the Fulton Corridor specific plan and what trees are allowed within that. And so right now as well too, as pretty much everyone here probably already knows, that there's already lots of planting of magnolias already in existence. And of course, we aren't necessarily in favor of cutting down a bunch of trees just to replace the entire streetscape for aesthetic purposes only. So we want to get the community's feedback. We're looking at this feedback, but what we're looking that might need to happen is that a memo of that documents the justification for why the tree selection needs to veer away from what the Fulton Corridor specific plan says. So we can discuss that further in the Q&A session, and you guys can also get in touch with Gareen directly. Her contact information will be at the end if you don't already have it, so that we can discuss the way forward to incorporate some of the tree selections that make the most sense for the community. Over on the right-hand side right now, I have, of course, the Southern Magnolia, which is already heavily planted in the area, as well as 3 of the other tree options that seem the most viable against the specific plan right now, or might be able to be approved through an amendment to the specific plan. And then also the questionnaire also included questions on street lighting preferences. And again, we really took that to heart. The city really appreciates that CFF asked these questions to get the community's feedback. And we're looking at this very seriously as well too. As Todd talked about already, along China Alley for safety purposes, it's going to be important that we use Cobra lighting in the alley itself, because of obviously clearances as well too, as well as safety. So on the streets though, for instance, on F Street, Mariposa and Kern, that's where we might have more opportunities for decorative lighting elements. However, the city is looking at how we are able to balance form and function between the two. As you guys of course know, we need to be concerned about things like wire theft and vandalism. If the approved lighting doesn't have a maintenance plan that the city is going to be maintaining as a part of that, that needs to be something that we consider in whatever streetlights are chosen. So right now, Gureen and the engineering team are working with manufacturers of street lighting to find out if there might be some options where we can do some customized street lighting that includes some of those decorative aesthetic elements while still being sturdy and hardy enough for the community to be served, because obviously nobody is served if we put in beautiful streetlights, but they're damaged and they aren't actually illuminating the streets. So that's where we're looking at right now, on the streets having some degrees of decorative lighting, but then in the alleys having the Cobra lights for safety and truck clearance. So going on from there, looking at tree selection and what might need to change in terms of the Fulton Corridor specific plan, as well as again looking at custom manufacturing of streetlights. These things are going to put a little bit of pressure on our schedule, of course, and create a couple of minor unknowns, but the city's working through that right now. So where we're at, again, with the communication with the manufacturers, finalizing the tree selection, and of course, finalizing the design features of the parklet that Brandon spoke to us about. And again, encouraging you to give your answers in the poll or going to the Transform Fresno site and giving us your opinion on which colors you like the most. That's where we currently are with the design, which means that we're looking at wrapping up design roughly by the end of this year. This is a tentative schedule. These are just estimates, and things are obviously subject to change since there are parties involved, as I just mentioned, that are outside of the control of the city's engineering department. However, this is what we're shooting toward, such that we are in construction sometime in the spring of 2023. Which means that we were looking to probably have construction completed by the end of next year, so that you who are residents and business owners and operators in the area can be planning for there being some construction during 2023. But again, these are estimates, and we never know if there might be other potential delays, but we will try to keep that communicated to you through the Transform Fresno website. You can also, of course, follow the City of Fresno, and we'll try to make sure that information is there as well too. And now this is your opportunity to be heard. We've been talking all about this project. We want to make sure that we get your feedback as well too. So if you have questions or comments, now is the time to raise your hand, or if you want to put it in the chat. I will read the chat probably last, try to get hands that are raised first. If you are on a phone, please just press *9. And if you happen to be on one of the foreign language interpretation stations, please just feel free to ask the question. And once you're called upon, ask your question, and the interpreter will provide it to us in English so that we're able to answer you back. But just one other note before we go over to questions and answers. Again, please do go to the Transform Fresno site. As mentioned before, the survey about the parklet colors that we have a poll up for it now, it's more official on the website, as well as in the next week or so, you will see the video recording of this particular meeting, as well as transcripts in English, Hmong, and Spanish. So with that, I'm going to leave the screen up just to make sure that you guys have the contact information for Gureen and myself, as well as, of course, the Transform Fresno website. And anybody who has any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand. Please wait until I call upon you. I'll then ask for you to unmute, or you'll see the message to unmute, and you can go ahead and ask your question once you hear your name. So just give me a quick moment, and we will start going through questions. I think the most important one is that, Morgan, unfortunately, I don't know what an Octa Flute is, but I would imagine if anybody here knows what an Octa Flute is, you and the team at Central Fish would know. So I apologize, you do not know what an Octa Flute is. I'm not seeing any hands raised right now. I apologize. If your hand is raised and for some reason I'm just not seeing it, I'm trying to scroll up and down and make sure I'm not missing anyone. Please feel free to put your comments in the chat as well too, and just let me know that for some reason I'm not seeing your hand up.
Hi, Erica. We can answer the question about the Octa Flute. That it's my understanding that that is the name for the existing style of light that's out there today. The mast of the light mast has 8 fluted sides to it.
Got it. It sounded much more fun. Did that answer your question, Morgan?
Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
All right, are there any further questions that anyone has? I'm again not seeing any hands raised at the moment. Would you guys like to go back to the pictures of the 4 parklet colors just to see those again? Would that be helpful for you? Vince, I see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Vince Kojijian? All right, well, while he's asking his question, I will go back to the parklet design features so that you guys can see the 4 color options that we're currently entertaining. So this is the red. And this is the jade. And so again, just to envision this, this is on the corner of Mariposa and F Street. This is the gray. And then the first option was just a black. I'm going to scroll through these just a little bit while I'm answering out loud, Morgan, your question. You had asked about the timing for construction. So we're looking at starting sometime in spring of 2023. So April, May, June, and then construction being completed in about 6 months. Right. Michael, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Just click on the.
Yes, hello. My name is Michael Duarte. I'm with the Fresno Housing Authority, and we're the developer of the Monarch, which is the building at F in Mariposa. I believe this parklet is going to be right out front of our building. And as folks get to weigh in on the color selection, I think we should put the context of what the building's going to look like and the color scheme of the building. That might be helpful for folks to sort of visualize what color in the real context makes sense. So maybe we can do that for a future meeting or whatnot.
Yes, absolutely. That'd be very helpful. I don't know if Brandon or Todd, if you wanted to weigh in on that further.
Hi, Michael. This is Brandon over at DeWalt. Yeah, we would absolutely love to do that. However, nobody has been provided anything from the Housing Authority. So if you guys have current color swatches,
Sure. Sure. If you ask, you shall receive. And I have a few of our team members on the call that if they can follow up, and who should they connect with?
The contact information is set back on the screen. You can contact any one of us. Gareen's contact information is on there, as is mine. And we will make sure that it gets to the right member of the team. But Gareen is the project manager for the city, so she will make sure that it gets to the right person. Nora, or sorry, Michael, did that answer your question fully? Or comment, I guess? All right, I'm just going to lower your hand then. Thank you, Michael. We've got your contact information and we'll be contacting you after this meeting. Nora, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering how come the parklets you're making them temporary parklets or movable parklets? I was wondering why that was. I wasn't clear. I'm sorry if you covered it already earlier. I missed part of it, part of the meeting. But and then the other question was, if on the parklet design, if you are making temporary parklets, are you planning to utilize that elsewhere within the city, that plan elsewhere within the city, or is it just confined to the Chinatown area? Did you hear that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I think that we've got a bit of a short delay, but perhaps Brandon and Gareen and your team can weigh in on that answer.
Hey, Erica, do you mind if I step in here?
Right ahead.
So to answer Nora's question, ma'am, the word temporary there does not mean that we would be taking it and removing it from the site. It's temporary in the sense that it can be movable. From our maintenance department, it's important that we can break the, or not break it down, take it down, and then relocate it as needed to either do street cleaning, or if there are events that are being hosted within Chinatown, that the parklet has the ability to be loaded quickly and relocated to within either a city yard, and then it would be brought back out to the same location.
So then I have another question. How many parklets are you talking about?
Just one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point out, Chad, your comment, I was just going to read it aloud, that you were saying that as far as street trees, the poll was hoping to gather additional types besides the magnolias, since they get too big and are not drought tolerant. We understand that. And though tearing down the trees, of course, is not always the best thing, that we do understand that the intent is more than just aesthetics. So I apologize if that's what was conveyed. We do understand that there are other considerations in terms of messiness and the roots and just managing of the trees themselves, just looking at other alternatives. So thank you. And again, we are delighted to have had CFF to have gone the extra mile, as always, in making sure that the community is heard as part of this project, because we do want this project to represent Chinatown, Fresno as holistically as possibly. Nora, did you have any further questions?
No, I was just confused that there's such a lot of work going into one parklet that I was just confused on it, because I actually think it's a great idea and probably could be utilized in other areas as well. But one step at a time. So thank you.
All right, and you know what, Jen, I had meant to go back to your question. I apologize. Jen, you had asked the question about will the 25-foot poles be used for all lighting, and making the comment that that's not pedestrian friendly. And I think probably Todd or the city engineering department can answer that.
Sure. So the 25-foot, the luminaire off the 25-foot pole is going to be on the street side. There will be a second on each pole. There will be a second luminaire or light, if you will, that's on the sidewalk side. That's going to be at 14 feet high. So, so you'll have the light serving the street at 25 feet, and then serving the sidewalk is at 14 feet. So that, I think that that should satisfy your question there, Jen.
Did you have any other further questions on that, Jan, or any other questions? And feel free to unmute yourself.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that certainly works. It gives us a pedestrian style with the, and then we're concerned a little bit about what pedestrian style lighting is selected, but to put it on the tall pole is something that's done in a lot of different districts, and I think that works fine.
All right, thank you. And Morgan, just to read your comment aloud, also for the sake of our translators, that you were saying that you're pretty sure that you can get the majority of the Kern Street property owners to choose the Oklahoma Redbud for Kern Street as opposed to Magnolias. Again, we do believe that there's a path forward for considering some of the other trees. As mentioned before, we just need to make sure that if they don't conform with the Fulton Corridor specific plan, that there is just a justification, and that justification, obviously being that the community is in favor of another species of tree, is a path that we can go down with the city. So there are opportunities that Gareen and her team have identified as ways of making sure that the community gets the trees that you prefer. So again, Gareen's contact information is up on the screen. So I think that in order to make sure that things like construction timing and finalization of design end up continuing on schedule, then that might be something that might need to be expedited. So yes, so as you mentioned, the Redbud's already on the specific plan, and so that's one of the reasons why we had that one up on the screen. The trees that we had here, let me just go back to that screen real quick. So these 4 trees weren't because they were the preferred options from the survey, but rather because these were the trees that seemed the most amenable to the specific plan. So these were the 4 that we think have a path forward. Did anyone from the city want to comment further on that, or were there any further questions on tree selection at this moment?
I don't think we have any further comment on that. I agree with everything you said, Erica. We are very interested in the results of the poll, and we're trying to work with that and what's out there already to come up with a happy medium there. We'll just need to coordinate with the community a bit because we're deviating from the Fulton specific plan. We'll need a justification prepared for that.
Thank you, Cassie. Well, does anybody have any further questions? I'm not seeing any hands risen right now, and I'm not seeing, I think I've addressed everything in the chat box. Let me just make sure, and I apologize if you happen to have been overlooked. That was my mistake. All right, well, pending no further questions, I think we can probably adjourn this meeting for this evening. Again, we do encourage you, yes, if you'd like to chat further, Jan, feel free to unmute yourself if you have something further to say.
No, I just wanted to be sure that when we have access to the slides, we also have access to the chat.
I get what you're saying. I believe you're gonna put my test my Zoom skills right now, Jan. I forgot if they are actually included, but if not, before we adjourn, I can just copy these comments as well too. But that's why I made it a point of reading everything aloud as well, not just for the transcript purposes, but also for our translation services. So everything that's been in the chat has been read aloud.
Thank you.
This is Morgan. Are we gonna have another a meeting like this to talk about like what type of pedestrian lights, the design and stuff, or how many more meetings are planned to discuss before everything's finalized?
I'll let the city answer that.
The grant doesn't call for any other meetings after this, but we can definitely keep the community informed through the Transform website. And as Erica has been mentioning, I'm always reachable for any additional comments or feedback.
Thanks, Corinne.
Any further questions that anyone else has? Last call.
I see a hand raised, Erica.
Thank you. Monica, yes, go ahead and unmute yourself, Monica. Thank you. Thank you, Cassie. Monica, I think may have dropped off. So while I hope that she gets back on, I'll answer Chad's question here. Chad, you asked, how do we submit justification on street tree changes? Perhaps Cassie or Gareen can talk to that.
Yeah, so we're still working with the planning department on figuring out all the details. And again, the justification would probably have to be emailed to me, and I will put the memo and documentation together and submit it to planning department for final approval.
So I think also to add to that is just probably the best thing to do is to follow up with Gareen directly. And again, it might make sense to do it through Jan, and just to make sure that everyone is staying apprised on the process for that. This survey, though, is obviously a great start, and this was part of the rest of the rationale for why it was important to have that justification, because the community obviously is interested in other trees. Monica, I think I see you back. If you want to go ahead with your question, feel free to unmute yourself. Monica Diaz, did you have a question? If you do, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll leave the call up for just
I
another
am
minute.
so sorry. I
There you
am
go.
having trouble. I apologize for that. I am having trouble. I am traveling and it's very difficult to do it right. I have two questions. The first one, I understand that the lighting has been selected for Curtin Street. I own property on F Street, and I did not hear about the lighting or the tree selection on the tree, on the type of trees, if anything has been selected. This is the first time that I hear about this kind of meeting. I apologize for that, but I am very interested on making sure that I participate on something so important as F Street. I also have another question, and that is the fact that China Alley has been mentioned a lot, but Vegan Alley has not been mentioned. So is anything going to that alley, or was that something that we selected from the beginning of the TCC?
Perhaps Courtney can answer the question about why Vegan Alley is not included as part of the project area. And then also we'll get back to your first question about the first time that you're hearing about this. So the first meeting that we had was back in 2020. So I'm not sure if you would own the property at that time, or for whatever reason, the outreach did not get to you at this time. We're obviously very glad that you're here now. But also too, I just want you to understand that these selections for the streetlights and the trees are not finalized quite yet. So again, there's still time for further feedback. So I'm going to turn it back over to the city, to Gareen and to Courtney, if you want to answer both the question on the timing for or more information on the finalization process, as well as the question about Vegan Alley.
Thank you, Erica.
Yes. Hi, Monica. How are you? Vegan Alley was actually never part of the project when it was originally voted on by the community back 5 years ago now. It was always China Alley was the only alley that was part of that project. So that was a part of part of the original scope and the original application to the funding agency that the community did vote on.
Thank you. I do remember now. I was part of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Please do include me in any further decisions that need to be voted on for F Street. I definitely want to be at the table for that. Thank you.
May I ask, since you're on the call and we almost lost you there for a moment, how was it that you heard about this particular meeting?
The city of Fresno, Lupe, emailed me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you for your tenacity and joining back on the call. We're glad we didn't lose you. Does anyone else have any further questions or comments or feedback that you would like to share with the group right now? I'm just going to do one more quick scan of hands. I'm not seeing anything else in the comment box. I do believe that we've addressed everything, but if we did not, feel free to raise your hand or type something colorful in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address it. But I'm not seeing anything right now.
Can I ask another question? This is Morgan.
Go ahead.
So if we were to like eliminate, you said some of like the trees on China Alley, and you know, because of and tree wells and just greenery type of stuff, does that leave more to the budget to do other things? Or I mean, because I thought like bike racks was going to be a part of you know, part of the active transportation
And sidewalks.
and not just fixing sidewalks, but actually we have areas in Chinatown where there are no sidewalks. So if things get moved around, does that mean there's more budget to do other things, or is it kind of we just lost out on it?
I think I can speak to moving things around, Morgan. We can't really take out trees. This is part of an urban greening project. And so having as many trees as a part of the project is definitely part of the goals. There are things that are not allowable as a part of this project. So it just depends on what you're thinking about. I mean, we have to go with what the scope says right now. There's always potential, but we really need to stick with what we have put in place and what was voted on. So, but maybe we can talk offline and see what ideas that you have.
And do you I also have a couple more questions. Do you know which sidewalks are going to be done? And also, was there this is the urban greening project, but wasn't there an active transportation component in this?
Green, can you answer those questions? I don't know off the top of my head.
This is primarily an urban greening project. It has some active transportation elements to it, but the projects that we're working with, which are Project 1 and Project 6, are urban greening projects. Now, we are planning to use those as much to our advantage as we can in order to fix the sidewalks near the areas we're putting in landscaping. So we're going to have to run some irrigation lines in order to water the trees. And anywhere that that's happening, we plan to repair the sidewalk. We're also going to be able to do the ramps for access at the intersections, but our ability to fully reconstruct sidewalk is unfortunately limited by the scope of the grant.
So is that kind of saying that there really is no active transportation in this project? Or is there a separate project that has active transportation?
I'm not familiar with a separate project. I'm just familiar with the scope of the grant for these two projects, and they do not include scope for full sidewalk reconstruction. They include limited repairs that are ancillary to other grant items such as landscape installation and accessible ramp installation.
You know, because I see Michael Duarte's comment, and yes, he, you know, I remember recalling, we made a kind of a science fair project, and we put pictures of, you know, what we were thinking was what was going to happen, presenting it to the community as if this is going to happen in Chinatown. And for us to put bike racks on there must have been because it was committed that there was going to be bike racks. If we do trees in the alley, does that, can bike racks be included in?
I don't believe we can deviate from the scope of the grant. I apologize. If there are, now I cannot speak for other projects that are going on in China Alley and what context those bike racks might have been discussed, but as far as their relation to the specific project and grant, they are not included.
Is there a possibility that you can connect with Public Works on other grants that construct sidewalks and combine those funds with what's available for sidewalks in this grant?
Courtney, that might be more of a grant coordination question for you. I don't have involvement in that side of it.
I mean, we can try to reach out to folks in the Public Works Department that are in charge of those other funding streams to see if they can complement. At this point, I'm not sure. I don't know of any other that are even in the neighborhood. But we can definitely try to reach out and see if we can put something together. That doesn't mean TCC funding will obviously cover that, because it won't, but we can see if we can reach out and see if there's other funding streams that can help us with the construction of sidewalks that are not there.
It seems like if the projects worked in conjunction, that it would be more economical for both projects.
Right. I just don't know if that would be taking away from a Public Works project that's already in existence, because those are planned out, pretty good amount of years in advance. So,
right.
But I will definitely look into it.
Thank you.
And to the grant topic, just to read aloud Michael's comment, replying back to Morgan, saying that yes, he does recall that the community was requesting custom bike racks and addressing areas with no sidewalks and that could be through the Transform Climate Communities or through Community Development Block Grant money. Just wanted to add that to the record. Anything further on the grant question or co-funding projects on that topic? Vince, I want to address your message. I'll try to take that offline about the question about cleaning of the sidewalks. I presume that your question is regarding sidewalk cleaning right now, as opposed to once this project is in construction. Is that correct? You can just put that in the chat. And then Monica, I see that your hand is up again. Did you have another question? If so, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it.
I do, Erica. Thank you. Yes, I would definitely like to support Morgan on this, because I was also part of the original board for that TCC. And when the budget was presented, it did have a component, a transportation component. So I would like to know at what point in time that changed. That's it, Erica. That's my only question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think the silence might just be because there might not be someone online who can answer any timeline. Per Courtney, I believe that Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, that wasn't your understanding of the grant.
Yeah, like, you know, just to reiterate what Cassie said, there are some components of transportation or active transportation, small components within these two projects. But this was never an active transportation project specifically. I can address the bike racks too. They may have been discussed in the early planning stages and presentations and stuff at the community meetings. But unfortunately, bike racks were never part of the scope for these two projects. So those didn't make it into the final scope and vote and all that good stuff. So just wanted to address those.
No, we're not. And, you know, I guess maybe it's more of a comment, maybe it's a kind of a question. With all the, you know, I know that communication sometimes we got so many things going on in Chinatown right now. But is anyone talking with like TPZP and high-speed rail to where if we do any of these projects, you know, they're not gonna come in and just tear it all up and now we got nothing because, or, you know, I've seen that kind of happen around here to where I'm not even informed on what they're gonna do sometimes and they just do it. And I just hope it doesn't, we don't waste dollars and high-speed rail 1 year later comes in and just tears it back up.
Yeah, I can address that, Morgan. I am in contact with High Speed Rail. I've met with them a couple of times. Even this project team has met with them as well, and they know our scope and they know what we're doing for these projects. And so we're making sure that those lines of communication are open so that they do not come in and tear anything up that we've put in, worked really hard to put in. So they are aware of the improvements that we are making. And they have not said that they disagree or they have other ideas or anything like that. In fact, their reach doesn't stretch as far as F Street at this point. So.
Yeah, to add to what Courtney is saying, my staff and our team, we did receive the high-speed rail plans. And so we're conforming to the work that they're doing. And so by all means, our goal is to not have anything in conflict with what we install that will need to be torn out later or vice versa.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a great discussion. Anyone else have any questions or comments? I'm just checking the hands raised one more time. Thank you, Vince. I've gotten your message in the chat regarding a matter outside of this project. And if there are no other comments or questions, I think we might be time to adjourn for this evening. Last call. All right, thank you guys on behalf of the city of Fresno and Transform Fresno and the entire DeWalt team. We're thrilled that we were able to share this time with you, and we really appreciate your feedback and your commitment to this project. So thank you again for your time. We do encourage you to go to Transform Fresno. And again, we have the little survey about the parklet design and color choices. We will continue to use that as a platform for communication and making sure that all of you in the community stay engaged. And please also coordinate directly with us. I've got again Gureen's information up here as well as my own up on the screen if we want to discuss further on the aspect of getting that memo of justification for any species that don't already fit on the specific plan for tree selection. And without further ado, I'd like to adjourn this meeting for now. Thank you again all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.